in Davos in January. We are in the midst of a rupture, he said, not a transition. I'm someone who believes that speeches matter, even though we don't hear that many great speeches these days. The PM reminded us that the single note of a fine speech, well delivered, can still penetrate the hubbub, including all the noise emanating from the White House. So hosting Mr. Carney has been a long-held ambition of ours, but in the aftermath of his Davos speech, we're even more chuffed to welcome him to Bligh Street this evening. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Prime Minister of Canada. Welcome.
That's fantastic. Very kind. It's exceptionally generous. I mean, Michael, like, what can I do after that introduction? It's incredible. Great. I'm honored to be here at the Lowy Institute. I'm honored to be here in the presence of Malcolm Turnbull. I learned how to move from being an investment banker to a successful politician, amongst other, from Malcolm. How to translate caring about the environment and doing something about the environment from Malcolm, and how to keep going from Malcolm. I learned how to manage risk from Glenn Stevens. Also, a man, have you ever done vaudeville, Glenn? Not yet. There's time. There's still time. There's still time. We'll do that. But no, and Stephen, thank you. Thank you for your chairmanship. Thank you for having me here, fellow ministers, for being here, friends, Ross, McHugh, and others. It's a great pleasure to be here. This institute, for over 2 decades, has hosted some of the most important conversations about our world's future. That's why I'm honored to be here. That's why I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute in some small way at this crucial time. And I'll just say at the outset, I'm just going to say a few words in French, and then I will, the balance will be in English, but I want to do un petit résumé en français. Alors ce soir, je parlerai de la rupture de l'ordre mondial, de l'impact de cette rupture pour des pays comme le Canada et l'Australie, de l'urgence de renforcer notre souveraineté et de l'opportunité de le faire en partenariat avec des alliés. Nous le savons, le monde a changé et nous devons aussi changer. Nous acceptons le monde tel qu'il est, sans attendre passivement qu'il devienne tel que nous le souhaitons. Et si les puissances moyennes travaillent ensemble, nous pouvons faire plus que protéger notre souveraineté. Nous pouvons construire quelque chose de mieux, de plus prospère, de plus juste que ce qui existait auparavant. So, you mentioned the rupture world. Yes, the world order, in our view, is undergoing a rupture. And the old norms of the rules-based international order are being erased, and that new system that will emerge ultimately is yet to be built. Global institutions have often been too slow to react to crises and too ineffective when they did. And this breakdown has been building over time. Over the past few decades, a series of crises, beginning in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics, have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, and supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. So countries, and this is the point I was trying to make, in Davos, countries cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes their source of subordination. Geostrategically, hegemons are increasingly acting without constraint or respect for international norms or laws, while others bear the consequences. Now, the extremes of this disruption are occurring in real time in the Middle East. To be clear, Canada, like Australia, has long seen Iran as the principal source of instability and terror in that region. The regime and its proxies have murdered hundreds of Canadian civilians over the years and caused untold suffering for millions of people in the Middle East and beyond. And despite more than 2 decades of negotiations and diplomatic efforts, Iran has not dismantled its nuclear program nor halted its enrichment activities. Canada has long supported the imperative of neutralizing this grave global threat. We stand with the Iranian people in their long and courageous struggle against the regime's oppressive rule, which is why we support efforts to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security. We are actively taking on the world as it is, not passively waiting for a world we wish to be. But we also take this position with some regret, because the current conflict is another example of the failure of the international order. Despite decades of UN Security Council resolutions, the work of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and a succession of sanctions and diplomatic frameworks, Iran's nuclear threat remains. And now, the United States and Israel have acted without engaging the UN or consulting with allies, including Canada. So the question is, where to from here, given we have a rapidly spreading conflict and growing threats to civilian life across the region? Canada reaffirms that international law binds all belligerents. We condemn the strikes carried out by Iran on civilians and civilian infrastructure across the Middle East. We implore all parties, including the US and Israel, to respect the rules of international engagement. We call for a rapid de-escalation of hostilities, and we're prepared to assist in achieving that goal. Because resolution of this crisis will ultimately require a commitment to a broader political solution, an engagement to avoid a wider and deeper conflict. Civilians must be protected, and all parties must commit to finding enduring agreements to end both nuclear proliferation and terrorist extremism. And we'll continue to pursue this approach with like-minded countries and participants across the continent. I'd now like to turn from that to what I originally intended to address more fulsomely, and don't worry, I'll try and keep to time, to the broader challenge that exists to sovereignty and prosperity. And I'd suggest that I'll start with the overall context. Middle powers like Canada, and I would suggest Australia, should recognize that the rupture in the international system represents just that, what that word means, a clear break from the past. And we need to act decisively to secure our shared future. The good news is we have the capacity to build important elements of that new order, an order that encompasses our values, including respect for human rights, sustainable development, solidarity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. And to make this practical, let me highlight 3 principles that would help achieve this goal. The first is to be clear that the requirements for sovereignty have evolved, and that means that we do need to as well. Right now, many countries are concluding that they must develop greater strategic autonomy. It's an understandable impulse, because when the rules no longer protect you, you must protect yourself. A country that can't feed itself, fuel itself, or defend itself has few options. But in the 21st century, the economic security and prosperity of countries extends far beyond food, conventional energy, and defense, as important and fundamental as these are. Today, sovereignty requires reliable access to space-based communications and semiconductors. It requires unhindered access to AI, digital sovereignty, critical minerals, payment systems, clean energy technologies, and vaccines. And because governments and businesses have long prioritized efficiency over resilience, we've all developed supply chains and trading relationships that create dependence on hegemons, in some cases hyperscalers, for essential determinants of our sovereignty. So our strategic imperative, Canada's strategic imperative, is to build sovereign capabilities and resilience in these critical sectors, at home, first and foremost, but with trusted partners like Australia, to ensure that integration is never again the source of our subordination. The second point I want to make is that is expanding on that last, which is to build true sovereignty. It can't be achieved in isolation. It requires diversification and partnership. Canada is focused on building a dense web of connections, ad hoc coalitions that work issue by issue with partners that share enough common ground on those issues to act together. In contrast, great powers can afford to go it alone. They have the market size, the military capacity to leverage to dictate terms. Middle powers like Canada do not. But when we only negotiate bilaterally with a hegemon, we negotiate from weakness. We accept what's offered. We compete with each other to be the most accommodating. And this isn't sovereignty, it's the performance of sovereignty. In a world of great power rivalry, countries like ours have a choice: compete with each other for favor or combine to create a third path with impact. This creates enormous opportunities for Canada and Australia to work together. At a minimum, to limit risk, but really, more fundamentally and positively, to build and increase prosperity and build our collective sovereignty. So for example, as this room knows, Canada, like Australia, has one of the largest critical mineral reserves in the world. We're both abundant in the minerals that are most in demand and most necessary for military and economic strength. We are building, and part of the point of this visit, not this part of the visit, but the broader visit, is to build out our critical minerals alliance with Australia, creating the largest mineral reserve held by trusted democratic nations. And let's give a few figures. Together, we produce more than a third of global lithium, a third of uranium, more than 40% of iron ore. We have a combined, between these two nations, right now, $25 billion war chest to fast-track projects. Globally, we're number one and number two as the most attractive mining jurisdictions in the world. I'll give another example under the control of the Minister of National Defense, Canada's Minister of National Defense. We've just launched our first ever defense industrial strategy. We will invest $500 billion into our defense, our broader defense ecosystem over the course of the next decade. Right now, I'm going to go off script. Right now, oh no, I will. It's too late now. I have to do it. Right now, when we spend on defense, capital on defense, 70 cents of those dollars goes to the United States. You can imagine that that doesn't make sense from a risk management perspective, and it doesn't make sense when you're substantially increasing your expenditure. So a key pillar of our strategy is to build at home, and to partner with like-minded allies such as Australia. We already have one great example, which is the Arctic over-the-horizon radar that we're jointly developing based on Australia's world-leading cutting-edge technology. But many more examples can follow. And given the changing nature of warfare, that means from AI to aerospace. The point is, the nations that invest in their own capabilities across strategic sectors and partner with like-minded allies will multiply their strength to form coalitions. And they become a more effective bloc to deter aggression, protect supply chains, and realize core economic interests. So that's why we're rapidly diversifying our partnerships. That's why we've signed 20 new economic and security agreements across 4 continents in the last 11 months. It's why we were the first non-EU country to join the Safe Defense Procurement Program in Europe. And it's why we're working with Australia to build a bridge between the Trans-Pacific Partnership, thanks to Malcolm, creation, build a bridge between the TPP and the European Union. If we're successful, we'll create a new trading bloc of 1.5 billion people. Now, Australia understands well the value of coalitions. Your regional partnerships, including AUKUS and the Quad, our critical minerals alliance through the G7, which Australia is a part of, multiply Australia's power and overall effectiveness. My final point is that middle powers working together can not only build true sovereignty, we can also help, underscore help, shape the next global order. Australia and Canada can't compel like the great powers, but we can convene. We can set the agenda, shape the rules, and organize and build capacity through coalitions that deliver results at speed and global scale. Because we have two advantages. It's clearer every day. We have two advantages that the hegemons lack. The first is legitimacy, and the second is trust. Australia and Canada have built this up over a century. We respect our commitments. When we sign deals, we honor them. When we join multilateral efforts, we multiply their impact. Other countries know we mean what we say and value our partnership. Contrast, the hegemons can compel, but that comes with costs, both reputational and financial. Change through compulsion doesn't last. By contrast, using trust to convene like-minded nations working together creates lasting change and stronger new institutions and systems. Middle powers have more power than many realize. Europe, Australia, Canada, Japan, South Korea. This coalition has a GDP larger than the United States, 3 times the trade flows of China, the largest research and development spend in the world, 62 of the world's top 100 universities, and the largest source of cultural exports globally. If we work together in a variable geometry, in other words, different coalitions for different issues, we can do more than protect our sovereignty. We can build something better, more prosperous, more just than what came before. And our view is that this is multilateral's evolution. It's renewing the international order through new institutions with new capacities, setting the agenda, convening, building a better world. Not all at once, but one issue, one strategic sector, one coalition at a time. Thank you very much. I look forward to this.
PM, thank you for those very thoughtful remarks. Thanks for agreeing to take my questions. I want to come to, I'd like to have a really broad-ranging conversation, talk about America, China, Europe,